Hi and welcome to Tea Drinking Reader. My name is Antje and today I'll be doing my June wrap-up. In June I read a total of 10 books, but I'll just go through in the order that I read them. The first book I read is The Unhoneymooners by Christina, and our two main characters, Olive and Ethan, are the maid of honor and the best man at a wedding, and everyone at this wedding gets food poisoning except for the two of them, which is why the freshly married couple offer them their honeymoon, which sounds like an awesome deal, except for the fact that Olive and Ethan hate each other and now have to pretend to be this happy newlywed couple for an entire week. And I absolutely loved this book. Well, love is a bit much, but I really enjoyed it. It was a fun read, it was quick, I had it done in one afternoon sitting, and I just really liked this change from enemies to kind of friends to in love over the course of a book. The two characters had multiple obstacles or minor chaotic situations thrown into their way, which was really fun to read about, and in general I just had a great time reading this book, and I think Christina might be becoming my favorite authors to read light, fluffy romance by. The next book I read is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, and this is a fantasy book set in a world where everyone from the age I think 15 to 16 can take a test to be admitted into one of the state schools, and these state schools are really prestigious, and our main character Lynn grew up as an orphan, and just objectively she should not be able to test into one of these state schools, but she does. She actually tests into the most prestigious one, and she's actually hoping for her life to turn better from that point onwards, but must figure out that hierarchy is a huge thing in these state schools, so she kind of has to keep her head down and study, and she actually finds out that she's got shamanic powers, and at the same time there is a war brewing. And I really like the premise of this book, I really like the setup and just the general structure, but as I already said in my more detailed review, I really struggled with the magic system. I didn't quite understand what was going on or how it really worked, and if you are reading a fantasy book and you don't understand the magic system, that kind of sucks. The next book I want to talk about is Cinder and Ella by Oram. We are meeting our character Ella after she is released from hospital after 9 months because she got into this terrible car accident where 70% of her body was burned and she still has other issues, and in this car accident her mother died, which is why she has to move in with her estranged father. This father left her without saying goodbye multiple years ago when she was still a small child, and now she has to move in with him, his new wife, and her new step-sisters to be exact, and her life just continues going downhill from there. Ella is really bullied at home and in school, and just in general her life is shit, which is why she rekindles her friendship or her online friendship with a guy called Cinder, whom she met via some platform with whom she chatted up until the accident but hasn't really been in contact to since. And what she doesn't know is that Cinder is actually this very famous Hollywood star, and yeah, the two just reconnect and it goes from there. This book was so sad and also light at the same time, so the bullying scenes are very hard to read, and it was absolutely heartbreaking what Ella had to go through, but at the same time her relationship to Cinder is really cute, and the two have a really good friendship and just happy banter, so that kind of leveled out. I did not expect going into this book and really enjoying it as much as I did, but this was a really good 3-star solid read YA romance that I'm really happy that I picked up. After Cinder and Ella I tried to get into fantasy again, which is why I picked up Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, which is a retelling of Rumpelstiltskin, only it's not. It's way more complex than that. This book is it's complicated. So we are following 3 characters, one of whom is Miriam, who is the daughter of a moneylender, only that her dad really sucks at his job, which is why she does the business side of everything. And at some point she kind of boasts that she's able to turn silver into gold with her job. The thing is that this fairy king type of monster overhears her saying this, and this fairy king is obsessed with gold, which is why he starts bringing her magic silver to turn into gold for him. And this intersection of the mortal world and this fairy world leads to a whole string of events with 2 other female characters kind of playing a role. One's a poor village girl, and the other girl is the wife of the Tsar. And this book was really complex. I think it's a YA fantasy, but it was complicated. There was just a lot going on. Again, I struggled with the magic system, just like with the Poppy War, which meant that a lot of my reading enjoyment was taken from me. And so our three female characters, they were really well thought out and they had depth to them and they were interesting characters, but it was just too much going on, as in actually each of them could have had her own book and it would still have made for great reading, and just all three of them put together was overload on my part. And yeah, I enjoyed it, but at the same time I was struggling the entire way through. And I have to say, this was the point in June where I decided I'm just too dumb for fantasy, which explains all the further reading choices I made, which were exclusively romance. And the first book I picked up after kind of giving up on fantasy was Ghosted by Rosie Walsh. So I really screwed up with this choice, because what I thought this book was about is a couple that is totally in love, and then they go on vacation and he ghosts her. And that is kind of what does happen in the story, but it's also not accurate at all. So we have Sarah and Eddie who meet on the street and then spend this 1 week together. It's an insta-love situation. They're completely infatuated with one another. I think they tell each other that they love each other. And then they go on vacation and Eddie ghosts Sarah from the first day onwards. And she is this woman in her 30s who goes absolutely crazy at this point. Her friends are telling her, look, you got ghosted, it happens. But she is convinced that something very terrible must have happened to Eddie to not contact her again, because of course they're totally in love after these 7 days. And she, everything she does is just kind of funneled towards Eddie, towards finding him. She kind of stalks him and contacts his friends and goes to places where she hopes to find him, and it's a very, very uncomfortable situation. I really did not enjoy this. This must be like one of the weakest female characters I've ever read about, and it was not enjoyable for me. The second half of the book picks up because there's a plot twist and kind of interesting stuff does happen then, but it really does not make up for the fact that Sarah as a main character is embarrassing to read about and not fun to follow, and just in general all the characters were kind of meh, and I just did not enjoy this reading experience. I then picked up Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. In my May wrap-up I said that I read Credence and Birthday Girl, which were kind of taboo romances, but Punk 57 is the book I think that gets recommended the most by Penelope Douglas, or it's her most mainstream book, and the premise sounds really interesting. We have our characters Misha and Ryan, who've been pen pals since 5th grade when they were randomly paired up, and since then they've been in contact, writing each other letters on a regular basis, but they made this deal of never looking up who the other person is, or just meeting up in person, even though they only live 2 towns apart. That is until senior year, when Misha accidentally finds out who Ryan is, and also finds out that she's been kind of lying about who she is, or she's just kind of portraying herself differently in the letters than what she's really like in reality, and it goes from there. This is apparently what's called a bully romance, so you have one character bullying the other and there's still something romantic going on. And I found out that this is not a trope I enjoy in any way. I don't get the appeal of it. Just in general, I did not like the romance aspect of a story, like everything going on outside, so the overarching plot, I guess. I really enjoyed. I liked the setup, I liked the premise, I really enjoyed it, but I didn't like the romance part, which kind of sucks in a YA romance book. Plus maybe I should say, whilst this is YA romance and is more mainstream, this is still a very sexually explicit book, which I also didn't realize until I got into it. But I guess I should have known because, Penelope Douglas. The Memories We Make is by Maya Hughes, and it's the first book in the Fulton U series, where we are following our female protagonist, Seth, who is 19 and is about to finish her master's degree and continue on to her PhD degree in 7 months, because she's this child prodigy kind of person, and she got just put under a lot of pressure as a kid. So her parents, or her father, is absolutely obsessed with her academic success, and she was never allowed to have friends or go to parties or just have fun in general, which is why she decides she has to make a list of things she wants to do before she goes on to this PhD program that her parents are forcing her into. And the first point on her list is to lose her virginity, and for this she sets up an online advertisement on the university forum website, hoping to find someone who is willing to offer himself up for her. And then we have our male character Reese, who is a kind of football star but has a huge publicity problem, which is why his team manager or his trainer coach says he's supposed to meet up with a publicity assistant and talk about their further options going forward. So Seth and Reese end up in the same cafe at the same time, at the same table, and he thinks that she is his publicity assistant or advisor, and she thinks that he's willing to take her virginity. And yeah, it's chaotic, it's fun. Reese says he is going to help her fulfill all the points on her list except the sexual parts, and they just develop this friendship and this fun dynamic where they try all these new things, and Seth just gets to know the world better and work through her issues. And this was a lot of fun to read. I really enjoyed this, even though of course it has its flaws, but it is just a fun read for in between. The next book I read must be my favorite for the month of June, and that is The Henna Artist by Alka Joshi. This was by far the best book I read this month. I mean, as in far. We are following our main character Lakshmi in 1950s Jaipur, where she is a henna artist, working for like the upper class women, for the rich women, for the influential women. And she's built up her business from nothing and has just been working her way to the top for the last 13 years or so. And she is planning on climbing even higher. But then her 13-year-old sister, who she didn't even know existed, turns up on her doorstep and brings this chaotic side to Lakshmi's life that she really can't need, but she has to be there for her sister. And I really enjoyed it. It was a great story to read. Lakshmi is a great protagonist, and what I really enjoyed was just seeing this beautiful side of India. There's a lot of architecture in here and a lot of food, and just in general this was a really nice read, and it's a book I would, I think, recommend to everyone, just because it just covers such a big variety of topics and it's just really nicely written. The last two books I read this month are from the Wait For You series by Lynn, and the first one is Wait For You, where we are following our main character Avery, who moves to university after really struggling in her hometown for the last 5 years, because 5 years ago at Halloween something happened and she's kind of been bullied or marked as a pariah ever since. So she is so glad to be starting all over again. And she lives next to Cameron. Cameron is her next door neighbor, and he is just everything I guess a girl would dream to be, or everything a girl would want from a man. He's funny, he's smart, he is caring, kind, patient, all of these things, and he is interested in Avery, but she can't really give him more than friendship just due to the thing that happened 5 years ago. And they first build up this friendship, then that slowly goes on to being more. And this was a sweet book. As you might have realized, Cameron's character is a bit flat and not memorable at all, but Lynn really makes up for that with her character Avery, who is really a fun or an interesting character to read about. She is multidimensional, and I really enjoyed just following her story and getting to know her. And this was, I don't know, it was a good read, and I had a good time reading this book in general. That's why I also picked up the second book in the series, which is Be With Me, where we are following Cam's younger sister Teresa and Cam's best friend Jace, and the two of them shared a kiss a year ago, and ever since Teresa has been absolutely in love with Jace. But Jace has been kind of ghosting her or just keeping his distance from her ever since, and she doesn't know what happened and why he's acting the way he does. Teresa is injured shortly before this book begins, which is why she can't go to the dance academy she was planning to visit, which is why instead she visits the same university as her brother and Jace, and there she tries to figure out what exactly she did wrong or what went wrong in general between the two of them. I really liked the premise, and I liked the first half of the book when we just got to see this dynamic between Teresa and Jace that was a bit weird, and you're kind of trying to figure out what's going on. But in general, the second half of the book was just them hooking up and nothing happening. And Teresa as a character, whilst in Wait For You, Avery was this really interesting multi-dimensional female character, Teresa is absolutely flat. She is very passive, like everything in her life happens to her. She doesn't really have a lot of agency, and I think in romance novels it is important that the characters grow in some way, but seeing as she wasn't active, she wasn't able to grow, it was more kind of life was just pushing her around and she took it as it came. So this is why I did not really enjoy this book as much. I will still be continuing with the series just because I already bought the books, but I hope they're better than this because this was not that great. Luckily for this book, I just read so many shitty other ones that it doesn't really disappoint me that much. But that was my wrap up for June. I've already started 2 books in July, so I know July is going to be a way better reading month than June was, and I'm really looking forward to talking about the books I'm currently reading in a month's time, or maybe next week already, depending on. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. Please like my video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll hopefully see you again soon. Bye!